All right, everyone, let's talk about the Nintendo Switch 2. There have been some rumors circulating around. I just kind of want to go through a couple of them and give my sort of take on it all. This is all coming from VGC. The link to that will be in the description below if you guys want to give it a read yourself. Great website, great article. Apparently, all we know so far is that this console is coming out next year, supposedly in the latter half, possibly holiday season. Look, that makes sense, right? I don't really have a take there, but after the recent Nintendo Direct, I really got the vibe that Nintendo is trying to just push all of their games out right now. Nintendo is known to have sat on a couple of projects here and there and have waited games out to see when they could fit them in, a pivotal release date, a good time for that game to sell. I think they've actually failed to do that with certain games, but I think now they're saying, hey, let's fire on all cylinders, let's get this stuff out. So next year, a couple of the games that we do know are coming out is the Princess Peach game, which looks super, super cool. We have the Luigi's Mansion remaster, the Dark Moon. It's kind of like a remake, actually. And then I'm assuming possibly some Tears of the Kingdom DLC. There hasn't really been any rumors about that, but it just kind of makes sense. And then Prime 4, maybe a new Pokemon, but Prime 4 is really the only other one we know that is absolutely confirmed to not be coming out this year and possibly coming out next year. Maybe that's the transition game, right? Maybe we get like Prime 4 on Switch and Switch 2, similar to Breath of the Wild. Maybe they try that again. Again, it makes sense. I'm very interested in how they transition onto this next console. Nintendo President Furukawa-san has mentioned multiple times that they want a smooth transition between the Switch and its successor. And I think they were talking primarily about their networking, right? They were talking about Nintendo Switch Online, all the little emblems, the N64 Classic and all that stuff. That for sure will transfer over, I have no doubt. But what about actual game development? Are we just all jumping on the Switch 2 immediately? Is that how it's going to work? Are they just going to stop making Switch games? It's a little bit different this year, this time around, because we're not succeeding failure. It's different. The Switch was a success, although slightly declining now. It is still a success. There is still a massive audience there. How are you going to get them all on board with the Switch 2? Whereas with the Wii U, everyone was done playing the Wii U honestly years before the Switch was even announced, so that was a pretty easy transition. It's going to be interesting on how they capitalize on that, on this massive audience that they already have, over 120 million people that already own a Switch. Are they going to be jumping over? The hardcore fans, for sure, but what about those families? You're going to have to redo all of that. You're going to have to rebuild all that stuff, and that's going to definitely be an uphill battle for Nintendo. But again, holiday season, that's going to help a lot. And I think it's all about software too. I think you're going to need some cute games for sure. And possibly a Prime 4. I don't think Prime 4 is that game. That's not the game that people are going to be buying. It's the game I'm going to be buying the Switch 2 for, but I don't think that that's how you get a big audience involved in your console. I do think Breath of the Wild was a very special video game, and Odyssey and Splatoon and all that stuff. That launch year was just incredible for the Switch. They're going to need something comparable, I think. I don't know. I really don't. Maybe it's just cross-platform. Maybe they do cross-platform for a certain amount of years, like how PlayStation's done it. It'll be interesting to see for sure. I mean, this has been the first time that they've had to success since, I guess, the Wii U to Wii, but even the Wii was dropping real hard. I want to go even further than that and say maybe the SNES. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's been that long, but it is a different animal this time, so it's going to be interesting to see how they transition those audience members and how they get them involved in the Switch 2 and that whole ecosystem. It's a little scary. The next report I want to talk about comes from Bloomberg, and it's in regards to the display. Also, not to mention that the console itself is going to be portable again. I think that's kind of obvious at this point. But I am a little bit disappointed because it's going to have an LCD screen. Emphasis on the L there, because I was really hoping for an OLED display. Look, I have an OG Switch. I still have my OG Switch. That display, it's not pretty, man. It really isn't. It's dim. It's not very colorful. It's not very sharp. I think the OLED really does capitalize on a lot of the LCD shortcomings. I think it is a beautiful display. It's big. It's colorful. It's bright. And to not have that on a brand new piece of hardware is a little frustrating, but they gotta cut cost, right? They have to get this thing under the price of the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. And honestly, right now, the Steam Deck, I actually do think that is somewhat of a competition here, at least in that space, and I do think that they want to undercut them. So if this is a shortcut, if this is the way to do it, I get it. It is going to have a newer LCD, right? It's not going to be the same LCD. It could look better, right? It could be more colorful and brighter. I hope that that is the case. I hope this new screen just looks a little bit better than the original. Will be okay. And also bigger, too. Make it bigger. Next, I want to talk about horsepower. Now, earlier this year, during the FTC hearings with Activision Blizzard and Microsoft, there were a lot of crazy, weird details popping out of that thing. It was honestly wild, but we all know that Microsoft and Activision do have plans to produce Call of Duty on a Nintendo console for the next 10 years. There's some kind of partnership there. That is a real thing. That is actually happening. Bobby Kotick himself, during one of these hearings, mentioned that Nintendo's next piece of hardware will be about on par with the PS4 and the Xbox One. He has this knowledge. Why would he lie about that? He has this knowledge. He has teams. We know that dev kits are already out. I'm sure Activision already has a dev kit. It feels about right to me. It feels like that's the next step for Nintendo, right? We're always a couple of steps behind PlayStation and Microsoft, but this feels right to me. But it is a pretty big drastic difference compared to the Switch. Now, I don't want to say Nintendo has been in the back of the pack recently, but they kind of have been in the back of the pack. Look, Tears of the Kingdom looks incredible. I think Odyssey still really holds up. Hell, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe looks great. That's one of the best looking games on the console. And they just put out Pikmin 4 recently as well, which uses UE4. And I think it holds up. I think it's a really pretty looking game. But there are obviously major shortcomings with the Switch in terms of how games run and how good can they really look, and obviously pop-in and things of that sort, and weird blurry visuals and unsharpened visuals. It does look not great sometimes, and it is going to be nice to see a Nintendo console a little bit more beefy. Although I do think it's primarily for third-party games like Call of Duty, obviously. I think it could be incredibly smart for Nintendo to go to other third parties and say, hey, we want your game running on the Switch too. Can we make that happen? Can you throw us a bone here? And just sort of pick up other games that were rocking last generation and even this generation. I really do think it could be awesome to have Elden Ring on the Switch too. Have games like Sekiro or Armored Core or Jedi Survivor or Street Fighter 6 or Baldur's Gate 3. Those kinds of games I think could be resold on the Switch to a lot of success, actually. I look at the deck verified thing with Steam Deck, and I always see a ton of people super excited to go back to those games now that they're deck verified, now that you can play it portably. I do think that there is an audience there. Only if the games actually look good, though, right, and run well. So that it's going to be definitely telling when we see that first trailer and we see how these games run. You know, seeing Skyrim run on the original Switch was so baffling to me at the time, but then when you play it, it's still baffling. It's still baffling that this is a game on a Nintendo piece of hardware, but it doesn't look that great, and it is kind of trucking, and same with Witcher, and same with a lot of the other third-party stuff. We can't have that going into the next generation. We need those games to look pretty. We need that support. We need FIFA running perfectly. We need MLB The Show looking gorgeous on the Switch. That has to be a thing. Those games can be very successful and can, push hardware as well. A lot of people are here for that stuff, that play those kinds of games, the Call of Duties, the Fortnites, and things of that sort. If Switch is the lesser place to play those games, they're not going to play those games there. So I do think it is important. But I think the big question on everyone's mind is, will Nintendo take advantage of that hardware? Because I know third party can, but will Nintendo... Look, I mean, God of War Ragnarok can run on the Steam Deck. You see where I'm going here. No, I don't think that the next Zelda game is going to look as good as God of War Ragnarok, but the fact that that's a possibility, the fact that that could be a thing, is kind of insane. Nintendo has not been ahead of the curve, has not had, beefy hardware since the GameCube, dude. It's been a long time since games have looked gorgeous. And honestly, Metroid Prime 4, if that is, a cross-platform game, man, you can make that game look really pretty. If there's 4K enabled and we can do ray tracing and shit in docked mode, Prime 4 is the game. Maybe that's why it's taken so long. Maybe that's why it's taken so long for Prime 4. Maybe they're working on this amazing 4K edition on the Switch too. Obviously, I'm getting into crazy, put the tinfoil hat on kind of deal here. But I think it is a possibility, but I do think, in all seriousness, Nintendo is not going to take advantage of it just yet. I think it's going to take time. I think it's going to take a lot. We just heard recently that they're working with Unreal Engine 5 and that they're finding success there. I think it's going to take them a little bit to understand those tools and build those kinds of games, but I do think it is possible, right? I can't imagine going from this to this playable. Like, I don't know. From this to whatever is better than this, whatever could possibly look better than this. Please come out with something that looks better than this for Pokemon. I don't know if Game Freak will ever take advantage of that hardware, but I should hope, right? I mean, we should all hope that Nintendo has it in them to produce something really, really pretty and with high fidelity. Does a Nintendo audience want that? Does Nintendo want that? That I'm not so sure on. I know a lot of people would say, hey, I like the way Tears of the Kingdom looks. I like the way Odyssey looks. I don't want those things to change, but sometimes you gotta change. Sometimes you gotta move with the times, you know? And I'm not saying, oh my God, make a super hyper-realistic 4K ray-traced 3D Mario game. I'm not saying do that, but you know, you could beef up that lighting. You could beef up those shadows. Tears of the Kingdom could absolutely run better. You could throw a little ray tracing in Metroid Prime 4. Like, those are things, little quality of life things that you can add here and there that don't require the whole kitchen sink, that don't require huge, massive teams to work. I mean, all of these games require massive teams to work on them, but you get what I'm saying. Like, I don't think it has to be a full jump. It could be a couple of small steps, and then slowly we get to that point where Nintendo is making Zelda look incredible. I don't know, man. I really don't. So that's pretty much all of the Nintendo... Oh, wait. Hang on. There is one more thing. Look at this patent. Now, the patents for the original Switch were extremely telling. The detachable controllers were revealed, basically, almost a year before the console was. We knew about that stuff through these patents. What is this? What could this be? I don't even know. Like, I don't even know how this would be used in a... What is this? Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If there's anything else that I missed, any other deets about the Switch 2 that you have, let me know in the comments below. If there are any other rumors or any other leaks that pop out, or any more of these fucking wild-looking patents, you can believe that I'll be there to talk about it. I got my ear on the tracks. I'm going to be covering this console as we go further. This was just kind of like a catch-up, right? We're just like, let's just lay it all out. Here's my thoughts on everything that we've been hearing recently, but I will be there for future stuff as well. But give me your thoughts on what do you think of the Nintendo Switch 2? Do you think it's coming out next year? Do you wish it had an OLED screen? Do you still think it could have an OLED screen? And what do you think about the visuals of Nintendo games? Do you think that it's time for Zelda to look like God of War? That sounds so fucking stupid. That sounds so stupid for me.